How do pro musicians play tunes like Summertime, My Funny Valentine, and Autumn Leaves from memory? Well, all of these tunes actually use one chord progression the majority of the time. So if you learn this progression, you can easily play hundreds of minor jazz tunes. So in this lesson, I'm not only going to teach you the chord progression, but I'm going to show you 5 levels for playing this progression, starting from a beginner level and working all the way up to the advanced level. So if you're ready to learn a simple, fast approach to learning minor jazz tunes, this lesson is for you. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, first I want to play a few tunes that use this progression, and then I'll teach you the progression itself plus the 5 exercises for each level. So here's Summertime. Here's My Funny Valentine. And here's Autumn Leaves. So what is the chord progression? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you next. But before we do this, if you're enjoying the lesson, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. The progression is called the minor 2-5-1 chord progression. And if you noticed when I was playing these tunes like Summertime, I was doing this progression where I was going to a D chord, a G chord, and a C chord. Same with My Funny Valentine. We have this beautiful intro, and then check it out. D, G, back to C. And same with Autumn Leaves. D, G, C. So as you can see, it's one of the most common chord progressions in minor jazz tunes, and if you learn this progression, you're going to be a lot more confident when you want to memorize minor jazz tunes. So the chords are very simple. First chord is a D minor 7 with a flat 5. It's a lot like a D minor 7, except we lowered the 5th. The second chord is a very simple G7 chord, all white notes. And the third chord is a C minor 7. It's like a C minor triad, and we add a 7th, which is the B flat. Now, this probably sounds very basic to you, but you can actually take these chords and play some beautiful chord progressions. The key is to understand the 5 levels, which I'm going to be teaching you later. But first, I want to briefly show you how you can figure out these chords in any key. First, you take a major scale, like a C major scale, and you flat the 3rd note, the 6th note, and the 7th note, and you end up with a scale that's called the C natural minor scale. Next, we're going to play the chords for the 2-5-1, and it's very simple. Basically, the 2 chord, which is the D, we're going to start on this note, and we're going to skip every other note from the scale. And we end up with our first chord called the D minor 7 flat 5. Next, on the G chord, the 5 chord, we skip every other note, and we end up with a G minor 7 chord, which you could use, but it's more common in jazz to actually use a B natural, okay? And this actually comes from the C harmonic minor scale. So on the 5 chord, you can use a B natural to make it a dominant 7 chord. Lastly, on the 1 chord, the C, we skip every other note from the natural minor scale, and we end up with our C minor 7 chord. The third step is to add a minor 6 substitute. And when you get to the end of this progression, it's really nice to throw one more chord in there called a C minor 6 chord. It's kind of like a filler chord that you can use at the end of the chord progression. So you can use these steps to figure out the minor 2-5-1 in any key. So for example, let's say you wanted to do this in the key of D minor. Well, what's the D major scale? Okay, let's lower the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th. This becomes your D natural minor scale. And from here, you can build your chords. So starting on the E, we skip every other note, and we end up with the minor 7 flat 5 chord. Then on the A, we skip every other note of the scale. And remember, we can lift that C up to a C sharp to make it an A7. And finally, on the 1 chord, we skip every other note from the scale to make our D minor 7. Now, if you want to learn this chord progression in all 12 keys, we have a really great course that can help you with this called the Minor 251 7th Chord Exercises course. I'll put a link to that below. All right, now that you understand how to build these chords, you are ready for the 5 exercises. We're going to start at a beginner level and we're going to work our way up to an advanced level of playing these chords. Because you don't want to just play ordinary chords like this. You want to spice it up. There's a lot of fun ways to do this. Now, as I teach you each of the 5 levels, I'm going to add some extra kind of spicy notes to the chords, and I want to quickly review which notes you can add to each of these chords to spice them up. On the first chord, the D minor 7 flat 5, you can add the E or the G to this chord. We call these the 9th and the 11th, but a simple way to remember these is that the first one is a whole step above the root, and the next one is 4 notes above the root. On the G7, you actually have 4 really spicy notes that you can add: the A flat, the B flat, the C sharp, and the E flat. We call these the flat 9, the sharp 9, the sharp 11, and the flat 13, but don't worry too much about the names. Just remember, this one's a half step above the root, this one is a minor 3rd above the root, this one is a sharp 4 above the root, and the E flat you can think of as a sharp 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you raise it. Finally, on the C chord, there are 2 notes that you can add, the D and the F. These are called the 9th and the 11th, but the simple way to remember them is that the first one is a whole step above the root, and the next one is 4 notes above the root. All right, now that you know the spice notes that you can add to each of these chords, let's start with the first level. This is level 1 for beginner players, and it sounds like this. So what am I playing? Well, on the first chord, we're going to use D, A flat, C, and F. It's basically a D minor 7 flat 5 chord spread out, okay? The second chord, super cool, G7 with a flat 13. This is that really crunchy note that I mentioned earlier that you can add to your 5 chord, okay? And if you're not sure where these notes come from, you can always go back to your original chord, your G7. Notice I'm using all of the notes from this chord. I'm just spreading them out, and I'm adding the flat 13. Fourth chord is a beautiful C minor 9. If you put the root on the bottom, you'll really appreciate this chord. It has all of the notes of your C minor 7 plus the 9, and I'm just spreading it out. And the final chord, the beautiful C minor 6 chord. Again, I'm taking the notes from the C minor 6 chord, and I'm spreading them out on the piano. By the way, I wanted to mention that you can download the lesson sheet music. You can also change the key of this entire lesson with a click of 1 button with our smart sheet music. And this lesson comes with 4 downloadable backing tracks at different tempos, so I'll put a link to all of that below. Now, the key to really mastering this chord progression is to play it in multiple keys. So once you can comfortably play it in the key of C, try it in a different key, like the key of F. How would you play your minor 251 in the key of F? Well, find your chords, your 2 chord, your 5 chord, and your 1 chord, and then you can use this system. So I've got my 2 chord, my 5 chord, my 1 chord, and we go to the F minor 6. All right, level 2 is the late beginner level, and it sounds like this. So for this one, the first chord, really beautiful spread out D minor 7 flat 5, and I've got the 11 there, the G, little melody, and then gorgeous chord. Love this chord. This is called a G7, but I'm adding 2 spicy notes. I've got the flat 13 and the sharp 9. We walk the melody down to A flat, and then we play this beautiful C minor 9, super crunchy. It's like a C minor 7, except I'm adding the 9 to it, and I'm rearranging the notes. And finally, our C minor 6, I'm going to play it like this. All right, level 3 is for early intermediate level players, and here's what it sounds like. So for this approach, I'm spreading my chords out even more. The first chord is a gorgeous D minor 7 flat 5, and I'm using the G's in the right hand. This is the 11th. It's a spicy note you can add to the chord. And then we got a little melody, and then I love this chord. Gorgeous G7. Doesn't that sound beautiful? I've got all the notes from the G7, except I'm adding the flat 13 and the flat 9. Really nice combination. There's my little melody, and then check this one out. Ah, super jazzy. This is my C chord. Okay, love this sound. All the notes from my C minor 7 chord, but I'm adding an 11 on the bottom, and I'm putting the 9 on the top. We got the melody, and then finally, my C minor 6 chord. All the notes here are from my C minor 6, except the D, which is that extra note that we can add. By the way, these voicings are called quartal voicings because they're primarily built out of fourth intervals, and you can do a deep dive on this topic in our course, Minor 251 Quartal Exercises. I'll put a link to that below. All right, level 4 is the late intermediate approach, and it sounds like this. All right, I love this approach because you get these huge chords with 6 notes, but believe it or not, we're using a lot of the same techniques that we used in the last level. So the first chord, big, beautiful D minor 7 flat 5. Next chord, ooh, this is a very hip chord. This is actually a passing chord that we can use in front of the G7. It's an A flat 13 chord, okay? Except I'm spreading the notes out and it creates a really nice passing chord, okay? Next chord, ooh, beautiful G7 flat 13 sharp 9. You'll really appreciate this chord if you put the root on the bottom and then play the chord. Sounds beautiful. And we have the sharp 9 here on the top, the flat 13 here, the 7th and the 3rd, and then we double the flat 13, okay? Next chord, play the same thing in the left hand, except in the right hand we move the outer notes down to A flat. This is called the flat 9. This is the sharp 11. Next chord, beautiful C minor 9, nice and spread out. If you put the C on the bottom, you'll really appreciate this chord. We're just adding the 9 to it. And then we bring it up, crunchy C minor 9 chord. Again, it has all of the notes of C minor 7 plus the 9, except I'm playing what's called a rootless voicing chord here in the left hand. And then when I bring it up, there's my C minor 6, there's the 6, with the 9 still in the left hand. Melody is the 9, and we bring it up. Okay, now I know that some of you watching are thinking, okay, this sounds great, Johnny, but what if I wanted to play it at the most advanced level? What would that sound like? So here's the same chord progression, but now I'm gonna use a really beautiful technique called the drop 2 technique. Check it out. So what the heck am I playing? Well, I'm using a very cool jazz technique called the drop 2 technique. And it's actually a very simple idea. If I took a chord like a C minor 7th and dropped the second note from the top, I have what's called a drop 2 chord. And you can do this on all of your chords. So check it out. First chord, we're gonna grab the D on the bottom. Beautiful chord. This is my D minor 7 flat 5, except I'm adding a 9 to it, okay? And we're spreading the chord out. That was the original chord. We're dropping the 2 down like that, okay? First chord, second chord, there's the 2 I drop down, and then this is gorgeous. Ooh, that is a really cool sound. Basically, I'm turning this chord into a D minor 7 flat 5, but I'm going to use a very brief major 7, okay? This is an advanced thing that you can do to briefly kind of add a passing chord before my D minor 7 flat 5, okay? That's the chord. And then it resolves to D minor 7 flat 5, okay? So we have, and then we resolve it back up, and then check this one out. This is my G7. I'm dropping the F down here, okay? Same thing here, it's my G7. I'm dropping the D down here, okay? And then, okay, this is my G7. I've got my flat 13, flat 9, dropping the B down to the bottom, okay? Again, same thing, G7 flat 9, dropping voice 2, and then, love the sound of this. Okay, this is a C minor major 7. That's the original chord, except I'm putting a 9 up here, okay? So there's the chord, dropping voice 2 down. Now to my C minor 7, again I'm dropping voice 2 down to the bottom, and then same chord, C minor 7, I've got the 9 in there, dropping voice 2 down, and then same chord, C minor 9, dropping voice 2 down, and I resolve it to my C minor 6. Now, if you want to learn more passing chords like I used in this chord progression, check out our course, Passing Chords and Reharmonization. I'll put a link to that below. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, please let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.